This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the November 2nd, 2022 South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. We have 4 commissioners present, Commissioner Osborne, Commissioner Hodges, Commissioner Kennedy, and Commissioner Kelly. At this time, I would ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to announce that all public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded, filed, and posted to the website for public access. At this time, I'd like to ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to please review our public and virtual meeting rules.
Thank you. The hybrid meeting rules are as follows. Courtesy of the floor for non-agenda items will be at the beginning and end of the agenda. Public comment will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. For all listed agenda items, the board president will call for courtesy of the floor prior to the Board of Commissioners taking action on that specific agenda item. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. You will be asked to state your name and address for the record and may then proceed with asking your question. For those participating virtually, please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid any background noise that may cause interference in the meeting. The chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address into the chat box. The staff member monitoring GoToMeeting will then unmute your microphone, and you will then have the opportunity to comment or ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'd also like to announce that the Board of Commissioners did meet in executive session prior to this evening's meeting to discuss legal and personnel matters. Moving on to the agenda item 4 is courtesy of the floor. If there's any member of the public who would like to approach the board for any comments on non-agenda items. Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the approval of our meeting minutes from the October 19th, 2022 meeting. They've been distributed to the board. Are there any questions or comments on our meeting minutes? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to presentations. This evening we have a Distinguished Service Award to present to Commissioner Michael Wolk. At this time, I'm going to read a prepared award that we have for you, Michael. This is a Distinguished Service Award presented to Commissioner Michael Wolk. Whereas the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners, Township staff, and citizens of South Whitehall would like to recognize Michael Wolk for his outstanding public service as a member of the Board of Commissioners. We applaud the dedication and leadership efforts demonstrated by Michael Wolk during his term of office, and we hereby acknowledge Michael Wolk's exemplary performance and commitment to this community by awarding this Distinguished Service Award, and congratulations to him. This is duly presented by the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners the 2nd day of November, 2022, in lawful session, duly assembled. Congratulations, Michael.
It's only going to take 2 hours, Sam.
Don't make a promise you can't keep.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, thank you very much for the recognition. And I'd like to thank the citizens who've trusted me as their commissioner. I greatly regret leaving the position, but it's necessary due to my family's decision to relocate. I am proud of my leadership during the last 5 years, which has helped to transform our township for the citizens' benefit. It has been very rewarding to work with the Concerned Citizens Group prior to my election, and with the commissioners and interim township managers, Randy Cope and Herb Bender, who've all shared common goals during my 3 years in office. The BOC, Township Manager Tom Petrucci, Director of Operations Herb Bender, Chief of Police Glenn Dorney, and the other department managers, David and Tricia, are a very strong team. Tom Petrucci has my highest endorsement, and I will greatly miss working with Tom as township manager. I have the utmost respect for the township employees whose performance is outstanding. South Whitehall Township is in a very good place. It has a strong foundation, it's heading in the right direction, and it will make great progress in the coming years. I truly believe that I'm leaving South Whitehall in a much stronger position than when I came into office. I believe the future is very bright in South Whitehall. So thank you to all of you, and I wish you all the best in the years to come. Thanks.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd ask the board and our township manager and Herb if we could all assemble here in front of the dais to take a photograph with Michael.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes, Commissioner.
um, not to dominate or take away from the proclamation that Commissioner Walk got, but would this be an opportunity for us to make comments if we'd like to, or later?
No, it'd be fine.
Okay, thank you. So I've known Mike, Commissioner Walk, just for 2 years, November 2 years ago. And I've served with Mike less than a year, just this year, so about 10 months. But in that time, I've learned a lot about Mike as a person and also as an elected official. So one of the things I learned personally is that Mike likes music. And his interest in music is a little bit different than mine. He likes single artists and sometimes artists that I've never even heard of. Solo artist, is one of his special interests. So I've come up with this little thing that I can give you personally afterwards, and it's called Faith. And it ties in Mike's interest in music, as I've learned it, but also what I've learned from Mike as an elected official. So Faith is an acronym, and the F is for forethought. Who doesn't know that Mike comes to this dais prepared every single meeting? In fact, one meeting, he asked me, would you move over a little bit? Because I have a lot of notes I need to keep in front of me. Of course, I did. A is for accountable. I is for integrity. T is for transparency. One of the things that Mike, even prior to taking office, was very interested in and instrumental in forming a citizens group along with other people in the community, which I'm very thankful for. And he continued that during his time in office. And H is for helpfulness. Mike unconditionally supported every staff member all the time, would give of his time and advice when sought to help them advance in their interest in their careers or their particular job at the time. But I picked Faith because I would like Mike to keep this one, I give it to him, to keep the faith. And Keep the Faith is an album by Bon Jovi. So, not that I would have known this, but It's the fifth studio album by Bon Jovi, released in November of 1992, November 3rd, 1992. It's the last studio album to feature all the original members. And Mike, you may even know this, that the bass guitarist, Alec John Such, left the band in 1994. So anyway, what I'd like to say is tie in my personal interactions with Commissioner Walk and also thank him and recognize him for the value that he brought to board and for the South Whitehall citizens. He really did a great job. Thank you, Mike. Gonna miss you. Tell me you like Bon Jovi.
Well, there are no coincidences, Brad, because John Bon Jovi grew up in my hometown and graduated from my high school. His wife grew up about 8 houses away from where I grew up. So you didn't know that, but
Oh, I didn't.
thank you for pulling that together. Appreciate it.
Thank you, very nice. Moving along in our agenda this evening, under presentations, we have a presentation regarding Barry Izett and Associates proposed fee increases, and I will call on Tom Petrucci to introduce this agenda item.
I can introduce.
Oh, okay.
So this is just a follow-up to last week. We had key codes. We thought it prudent to have any third parties that are increasing fees come prior to the reorg meeting when there's not much opportunity to make any adjustments. So Greg's here to discuss any fee increases and answer any questions you might have. Barry Izett is currently our third-party residential building inspector.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Greg. Good. Could you make sure the microphone's on, the little green dot?
Excellent.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. So Barry Izett and Associates has been providing Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code services to South Whitehall Township since 2020. Since that time, although Izett's rates for those services have increased, we did not increase those rates that we charge for many of our established clients, and South Whitehall Township is one of those. With 2021 inflation rates exceeding 4% and 2022 inflation rates exceeding 8%, it has become increasingly difficult for Izett to absorb the cost increases we experience every year. For 2023, we need to propose a rate increase for our Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code services. Although our rates have increased by more than 50% since the implementation of this fee schedule, we're proposing a 10% increase on the residential fee schedule that we're currently using due to our long-standing relationship with South Whitehall Township. And then I prepared 2 examples just to kind of show what that increase will look like. So with our old fee schedule, a single-family dwelling, a brand new single-family dwelling that is 4,000 square feet would cost around $1,000 for the permit. Okay. With the new proposed increase, the price would be $1,100. So there's a $100 difference in that permit cost. A smaller project that a lot of people build decks. So I did a deck example, and for that we did a 300 square foot deck without a roof. Off of the old fee schedule, a 300 square foot deck would cost $215. And using the new fee schedule, it would cost $237. So $22 increase essentially there. So it's not a very drastic increase. You'll see it more, the larger the permit cost is, the larger that increase will appear, but somewhat necessary as inflation hits us all pretty hard. Do you have any questions for me?
Greg, thank you for your presentation. I just want to confirm that I heard you correctly. You've been providing service to us since 2020,
Correct.
and our fees, your fee schedule with us stayed the same through 2020, 21, and 22. There were no
Correct.
changes at all to the township.
No
So this
change.
is the first
First increase.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you. Are there any board questions? Commissioner Osborne?
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. Yes, so I'll address this to our township manager and perhaps Herb. But inasmuch as in this case, you represent the township, and these are actually township fees, right, that are charged?
Yes.
Okay. So Tom and or Herb, are you comfortable with this new fee schedule?
We haven't made that determination yet. So it was really a three-step process. The first was last week in reviewing key codes as increases.
Yep.
This is the second part of the process. And then next meeting, we'll be coming back to a recommendation after internally discussing and reviewing. So I'm not prepared to answer that at this point.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but it
You
would
can
be
always
important
put me
to
on the spot.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board questions? Any from the public? No? Well, we appreciate you very much bringing this information to us. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you all so much for your time. And we are open to any, particular changes to the fee schedule. Nothing set in stone. This is a proposed fee increase. So if you have issue with particular items, I'm more than happy to come back and discuss anything. So excellent. Thank
Very
you all
good.
so much for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you,
Thank
you
you.
as well. Okay, moving on our agenda to agenda item C, we have our first reading of the proposed 2023 budget, and I will call upon our Director of Finance, Tricia Dickert.
Good evening, Commissioners. So all of you were provided at the start of tonight's meeting with what the township has drafted as the 2023 proposed budget. So just a bit of housekeeping before we go into just some general statements about what we've been discussing both at the workshop that took place and then the follow-up commissioners meeting where we answered a few questions. With the board's approval, I believe, after we've read it by motion, this book will be available for public inspection in the reception area of South Whitehall Township Building. And a link will also be posted to the township's website, which will direct anyone who is interested in all of this fun reading to the web version of the book. Okay. So if you'll start with me on page 25 of the book that you received, just going to generalize the general fund. So for 2023, in your proposed book, the revenues are projected at $17,825,146, and the expenses are forecasted at $17,740,281. This gives us a surplus in the general fund budget of $84,866. That money will go towards maintaining and building the fund balance for general. So if you have any questions that you want to go over with respect to general, I turn it over to all of you.
Thank you, Tricia. Are there any board comments on the general fund? Well, there don't appear to be any, Tricia.
So we'll move on to page 48, which summarizes the fire fund. And I have to admit, I printed so many versions of this that I did notice a transposition. So I'll make sure before this book is posted online tomorrow and the public inspection copy put in the reception area, I'll just read off to you on this page which numbers are different. So we'll just start by the revenues and expenses for fire. So the proposed revenues for the fire fund are $1,135,000, and the forecasted expenses are $870,000. That gives us a surplus of $265,000. $200,000 of that surplus will get dedicated with your approval to the fire apparatus fund as a way to try and prepare for the costly emergencies that we're trying to prepare for with respect to trucks. In addition to that, $50,000 will be set aside for the fiscal stability fund for fire, and the balance of $15,000 will also go to fiscal for fire to offset $63,000 that was used from that fiscal stability in 2022. So the correction that you'll want to make on page 48, that first line under summary, where the bullet points are, that number should actually be $200,000 will be transferred into the fire apparatus fund. And then 2 lines down where it says 31,000 will be transferred to fire fiscal stability, you'll change that to 15,000. That number changed because of a cost increase estimate that we are expecting for workers' compensation. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board again if there are any questions related to the fire fund.
Thank you again, Tricia. Any board comment or question on this fund? No. Okay, very good.
Okay. Moving right along. God bless you. So page 56 is where we'll go next, and page 56 starts the water fund. So summarizing page 56 and the position for water, the proposed revenues for the water fund are $4,831,250. Proposed or forecasted expenses are $4,082,592. This gives us a surplus of $748,658, which will help build the fund balance. So just a reminder, with what we discussed both during the workshop and the meeting, this will come with a rate increase on both the consumption percentage and the base charge. And all of that information has been laid out for you on page 56.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Board comment or question?
Right. The surplus.
The surplus was, give me 1 second, 748,658.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on to the sewer fund. Just to summarize what's in your proposed budget on page 63. The sewer fund is forecasted revenues of $3,915,858 and forecasted expenses of $3,802,464. This gives us a surplus of $113,394 to start building up that fund balance. Again, as discussed during the workshop meeting and the subsequent Board of Commissioners meeting, sewer will also realize an increase on both the consumption and on the base charges. And again, on page 63, that's laid out for you. Any questions on sewer?
Any questions? No?
Everyone's trying to watch the Phillies game tonight. Let's see how it is. Okay, so moving on to page 70, we'll go over refuse. Refuse has a forecasted revenue totaling $2,941,126 and forecasted expenses of $3,021,714. This has the refuse fund operating at a deficit of $80,588, which will be taken from the fund balance. Any questions on refuse?
Questions?
Okay, page 84, we'll talk about state highway aid. State highway aid has 84. I've done yours. All right, I'll have to go backwards. We'll look at, does anybody, you have page 84, everyone has state highway aid. We'll do that first and then I'll go backwards. State highway aid has forecasted revenues of $713,919 and proposed or expected expenses totaling $772,000. This has state highway aid operating at a deficit of $58,081, which will also be covered by the cash carry forward. So if we can backtrack 2 pages to page 80, the open space fund. Open space is projecting roughly 144,000 in revenue and roughly 128,000 in expenses. And that has us at a forecasted surplus of 16,614. Questions on open space? So we'll move on to capital, which is sort of in 2 different sections in the book. I'm going to have you turn to page 89 or 90. The information on that page, and then also I believe 74 is sort of duplicative, but the end of the book just lays out the capital projects a little bit clearer, which is why I'm referring you to the back. So if you look at the capital projects and purchases starting on page 90, we'll talk first about the general fund capital. So general fund capital is funded by the cash carry forward from the year prior, obviously staying mindful that we're trying to build that fund balance. So the proposed capital projects and purchases from general total $1,916,787. And then the few pages that follow past page 90 are the individual capital request forms that are included in that 1.9 million. Anybody want to go over the capital request forms individually, or I'm pretty sure we discussed this.
We did review. Are there any additional questions from the board? No.
So if you, so this is where the new software gets a little bit wonky. It didn't number the pages that were the actual requests. So if you turned a few pages past, you'll finally find one labeled 91, and that's where the water capital projects will be listed. So the water capital projects are listed at a total of 497,890. And the projects are all listed for you on page 91, and the individual requests from the departments are the pages that follow. Moving to page 92, you'll see a list of the capital projects that have been requested for sewer, capital projects and purchases, my bad. And the capital projects and purchases for sewer come to 667,500. Just past those pages on page 93, you'll see a request for capital that is for the open space account. There are 2 capital requests for a total of $128,000. And the forecasted open space revenue for fiscal year ending December 31, 2023 is 144,614. And the difference between what's being requested in open space for capital and the revenue obviously will just go right back into that fund. On page 94, there's a capital request using the American Rescue Plan Act monies. And the details on that are right now the unappropriated balance in the ARPA bank account is $1,674,801.44. That's as of October 31st. And the requested use of ARPA monies is for a total of $635,993. And then the next page shows you the detail related to that request. And last but not least, on page 95 is a request to use the debt service money for the Township Municipal Building sidewalk. That estimate is approximately $287,000. And our account balance that will fund that is $289,286.88. That details everything in your 2023 proposed budget, and I'm happy to answer any.
Thank you for that presentation, Tricia. Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners? Okay, any from the public at this time? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we can move ahead to agenda item 9A. If you'd all move ahead with me. We would need a motion to proceed with advertisement of availability of public inspection copy of the proposed 2023 South Whitehall Township budget. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item D, we have a presentation by the Pidcock Company. I'll turn it over to Tony Tallarida.
Thank you. I don't want to make this presentation too in-depth. We're going to go through this much more detail next meeting. I know the Phillies game's on about 30. But what I can say is this, is that the Cover Bridge Park pedestrian bridge is extremely important to our company and to the Pidcock family. John Pidcock designed that bridge for his grandkids. He was a second generation. Actually, Stuart now is working for our company as a fourth generation. And when we heard that the bridge itself needed some modifications for ADA accessibility, we definitely wanted to jump on that opportunity to help the township. We have begun survey on the bridge to try and figure out the best way to make that happen. And we're coming on with a few different options. Now, as we move forward, we'll have additional presentations and renderings if necessary, but we definitely want to keep the board up to date, and we request and appreciate all the input from the board for what it looks like and how it's going to function. We want it to be best for the community. So as we move forward, we'll keep you up to date, and as in the next few meetings, you'll see a few different more renderings and more items. So it's a lot of work. There's a lot of issues. I mean, everyone knows the park flooding issues. There's a stream, but we're going to do everything we can to work through those items, be able to get you something that we all could use.
Tony, thank you. That is extremely generous of your company. We appreciate you working on this for the benefit of our community.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments on this from the board? Any from the public? Okay. Oh, well, thank you very much, Tony. We appreciate seeing your future presentations on
Will
this.
do. Thank you.
Moving ahead to ordinances, we have a motion to adopt said ordinance, an ordinance of the Township of South Whitehall, County of Lehigh, and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the amount of the compensation payable to the Board of Commissioners as referred to in Part 1, Administrative Legislation, Chapter 50, Officers and Employees, Article 3, Commissioners of the Codified Ordinances of South Whitehall Township, and providing for a repealer severability clause and effective date. And I will ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to assist.
Thank you. Yes, so the ordinance was advertised in accordance with the requirements of the First Class Township Code. The First Class Township Code was amended in order to establish the salary amount that the Board of Commissioners may receive by ordinance. Specifically, it was Act 96 of 2020. And this maximum allowable salary of each commissioner was adjusted for inflation. And it's based on the population figure for South Whitehall Township available as of the latest census, which is 21,080. So the salary amount that each township commissioner may receive shall not exceed $6,915 for a population of a first-class township that is between 15,000 and 25,000. However, it's very important to note that any change in salary compensation or emoluments of the elected office shall become effective at the beginning of the next term of any newly elected township commissioner. So it would not, any of these salary increases would not become effective till after the November 7th, 2023 municipal election. So with that, I'd seek a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Thank you for that presentation, Tom. Are there any comments or questions on this agenda item?
I have some comments, but Commissioner Kelly, I'll wait until a motion is made and seconded before I make my comments.
Sure.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. Motion and a second. Open for discussion.
Thank you. This is a proposed increase of $2,800 per year for each elected official in South Whitehall, Commissioner. And I believe if it's ever appropriate for elected officials to increase that office's compensation, I don't feel this is the time. And here's my reasoning. Inflation is as high as it's been in the last 20 years. Many families, as a result of this, have worked from paycheck to paycheck. 401ks have taken a beating and especially affect those who are counting on Social Security and their savings up till now. It's going to be difficult for them to get through this economic environment, as we all know. But to bring this a little bit closer to home, a compensation increase of $2,800 would be more than what 80% of the employees in South Whitehall have been given this year. More than 80% of the employees. This increase is over that. Free and reduced lunch in Parkland School District today, based on income, is 28% of the residents or the students in Parkland School District have free or reduced lunch as a result of the economy. Very specifically, Public Works salary would have to be $112,000 a year in order for their increase to even come close to $2,800. And we know that's not close to the situation today. So with that reasoning, I believe this legislation is ill-timed, and I hope the board would take this under further review before approving it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments from the board?
I have a comment. Tom, I know you're new to the township and you may not know this answer, and I respect that. Do you know the last time the Board of Commissioners received an increase?
Yes, because it's in the code. When I looked at the ordinance, it dates back to I believe 1995.
So 1995 was the last time the BOC, and I certainly wasn't a member, got an increase.
Right, because you have to follow what the First Class Township Code.
Respect that.
Right.
So I guess in response to Commissioner Osborne's comment, I guess I would have to ask if any of the township employees, since you specifically mentioned them, I'm not going to go into detail in that, I would have to think that since 1995, each and every year, there may be a few exceptions, they've received an increase. Whereas the BOC has not. I agree with you totally. Inflation is high. We all know that. But it's also high for a BOC member to come here, comp plan, workshop, meetings, other meetings as necessary for just the gas cost alone. So those are my comments where I feel it is justified completely. It is, when a percentage basis is looked at, yes, it is high if you look at a percentage. But when you see from 1995 that any individual sitting up here who is attending meetings on a regular basis and all the other meetings that are required in this position, none of us do it for the money. It's basically, it's not a salary, it's a stipend. I did it for 23 years at Parkland School District and didn't get a dime. And I had a lot more meetings as a school director than I do as a commissioner. So I don't think it's out of line for the newly elected commissioners after the November 23rd, November 7th of 2023 to receive that. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kennedy. Commissioner Hodges.
I do have a comment. I just want to make it very clear to the public that this increase or potential increase, if future commissioners decide to take it, will not affect us. This is for future commissioners. So the decision we make today will affect future commissioners, not us. I certainly am not sitting here for the compensation I get. I am not, as a citizen advocate before I was elected into office, I spent hours and hours, never even knew that there was compensation for this position. I did it for a passion for my community. But anyway, I feel that making a decision for future commissioners is kind of denying them is not something we should be doing. If a commissioner in the future decides that they don't want the salary dictated by the first class township code, well, that's up to them. They can refuse it, as could any of us. But I feel that if it hasn't been updated since 1995, it should be updated. We should be in accordance with first class township code. So I don't think it's right for us sitting here today to tell someone in the future that they're not worth it or they shouldn't receive it. I think they should be allowed to make that decision on their own. I think it's presumptuous of us to make that decision for future commissioners. They should be making that decision. So just to wrap up, we shouldn't deny future commissioners to have that salary, to make that decision. And again, it will not be affecting any of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hodges. Thank you for bringing up that point. What we're doing potentially this evening with this action is to comply with the first class township code. And as it's been reviewed already tonight, the last time the state legislature amended this section of code, which sets the salary ceiling for commissioners, was 27 years ago. And if this action is to proceed this evening, what it will do is bring us in compliance with every other first class township code throughout the Commonwealth. And I do agree with the point that was made earlier. 27 years, this salary has not been adjusted at all for any reason. And I am in agreement with bringing us in line with the state township code. And again, to reiterate, it does not affect any of us, any of our salaries. We're talking about 2024. And I believe the amount that the budget would have to absorb for this action is $13,950 total for all 5 commissioners for an entire year. So when you put it in perspective, it's a $13,000 line item that we would consider in the 2024 budget.
Commissioner Kelly, not to prolong the discussion, but I would like to make a clarification. You used the word compliance a couple times. The first-class township code does not require that this action be taken unless the commissioners opt to do that. It's not bringing us into compliance. If this legislation is passed, it's bringing the compensation for the elected officials in South Whitehall up to the allowable limit. We do not have to do this.
Agreed.
Okay.
Well, my point was the first-class township code states that this is the salary, and if we adopt this legislation, our ordinance will mirror what the state first-class township code states,
Allows.
allows.
Yes,
Correct.
yes. Thank you.
Any other board discussion? Any from the public? Sir? Of course, you have to come up to the microphone, make sure it's turned on, and please give us your name and address for the record.
Manley Offit, 1991 Molinaro Drive. My question is, will this only apply to the commissioners that elected in 2023, or will all commissioners get the increase?
Only new commissioners that are sworn in 2024. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sir?
That's right.
Robert Weiss, 2042 Whitehall Avenue. Wow, everybody made a good point. I object to the word salary because you guys certainly don't get a salary. It's a stipend. And as Ms. Hodges brought up, it's not for you. It's for the people in the future. So by voting for this, you could in fact be slashing your own throat in the reelection. And the $6,000 is, like you said, Ms. Kelly, it's really nothing. $13,000 line item. Mr. Kennedy said the same. You go through a lot. The prep just for what you do here, just what we see, much less your other meetings and other things you do, it certainly deserves this kind of an increase. On a percentage basis, yeah, it's ridiculous. Anybody could see that. But when you consider from 4,000 to 6,000, it's nothing. It really is nothing. I mean, that's my personal opinion, and certainly anybody out there who thinks, okay, they haven't had an increase for 27 years or whatever the situation, for whatever you're talking about, it just doesn't matter. It's just an insane kind of thing. This is the kind of thing that maybe should be looked at every 5 years or 7 years or something. 27 years is just ridiculous. The price of gas goes up and down and everything else. Dry cleaning, everybody comes here dressed professionally. That doesn't happen for free. Personally, and like I said, certainly I don't speak for anybody other than myself, but since you're not voting for yourselves, only for the elected officials in 2024, you could be just, setting yourself up for defeat in the election. But certainly the people coming into the next one, they would appreciate it. And I think it would benefit them. And if you happen to be reelected, it benefits you. But it's not, anybody who thinks they're coming in for this money is just, they need to have their head examined. Because, just the cost you incur doing these meetings and everything else you put up with is $6,000 doesn't come close to that, I'm sure. But that's my opinion, and I don't see any problem. It certainly isn't anything that I would object to. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Any other comment from the public? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-1. Thank you all.
And if I may ask Tracy, would you be willing to put my comments in the minutes since I voted against it? Thank you.
Okay, moving on to resolutions. We have resolution A resolution amending, I'm sorry, we'll go to, resolution A, a resolution amending resolution number 2022-01 and resolution number 2022-69 designating depositories for township funds. And I'll ask our township manager, Tom Petrucci, to please present.
Thank you. So as part of this resolution, I'm actually requesting official action on two separate items. So the first is the resolution. So I'm requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve it to add Univest Bank and Trust as a designated depository of township funds, as well as to memorialize recent signatory changes with myself, Tricia Dickert, and Herb Bender, and to effectuate that change. Okay. So that's the first action. I'll explain all of it before the vote, if that's okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, and then a motion is also requested to be approved to authorize the township manager, director of finance, and fund balance specialist to open a public funds elite liquid money market account with Univest for the fiscal stability fund. So for the background information on that, the current certificate of deposit holding the fiscal stability fund, which has a balance of just over $2,200,000, is with Nefs National Bank, and it's locked into a rate of 0.4% until 2027. The previous CD with a rate of 1.99% matured in April of 2022, and the CD was rolled over at the reduced interest rate for whatever reason. So extrapolated over an entire fiscal year, the reduced CD interest rate results in a loss to the township of about $35,000 plus or minus. So $44,000 in anticipated earnings versus $8,850. So there's a good option here, though. However, Univest Bank and Trust and Company has this liquid money market account, which has a minimum balance requirement of $1 million and a maximum balance of $25 million. There's no costs and no fees, and the current interest rate is 3.25%, and the rate automatically changes as the federal funds rate changes. So this would give the township future flexibility with respect to the use of the funds, depending on what transpires at the level of the Federal Reserve. So all deposits are secured under Act 72 public funds and a letter of credit or a letter of credit for the total amount of the investment. So it is compliant with Act 72, and monthly statements are provided. So in order to effectuate the recommended change in the depository, we would have to pay a prepayment penalty in the amount of $2,212.71 with NEFs, and that's been calculated through the end of November. But it's important to note that the penalty will be immediately absorbed by the positive difference in the anticipated additional interest earnings. So we would expect to receive, based on current interest rates, about $71,000 over an entire fiscal year. So that's at a difference of about $63,000. Of course, we can't forecast what the interest rates will be. That if we could do that, that would be great, but we can't do that. But we are well positioned to adjust as necessary due to the funds being held in a liquid account as opposed to a CD. So I'm asking for a motion first to approve the resolution, 2022 to amend 2022 -01 and 2022-69, and then we would proceed to motion agenda item 9B after that.
Thank you, Tom. I want to thank you and any staff who were involved in identifying this opportunity to move the funds over and for the favorable interest that the revenue that the township will receive because of that. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Are there any questions or comments on this matter?
I think Commissioner Hodges was before me.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. Does this mean that anytime money is transferred in or out, it's done through a resolution?
No, in this case, this is just the resolution's only required to list our depositories. So Univest is not currently an authorized depository of the township. So in order to add them, we have to do so by resolution. And it also confirms the signatories that we changed with all of the staff changes.
Commissioner Osborne.
Yep, thank you. Tom, is there a firewall between the funds that we borrowed and this proposed account? And the reason I'm asking is that for arbitrage reasons. Is there a firewall where that will not happen.
I don't,
Cannot happen.
I don't believe those funds are commingled, correct?
Sorry, that's correct. Those funds are sitting in a bank account in and of itself or in a CD, totally excluded from all of the other township funds.
So this is for the fiscal stability fund. That's the accumulated, per the fiscal fund balance policy.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, and you understand my question.
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank
Basically,
you.
the savings account.
Correct. Yeah. And to Commissioner Osborne's point, you wouldn't want to commingle the bond funds. They have to be held separately.
Right. I understand. Off the top of your head, Trish, do you know what is our bond fund rate?
I don't know the answer to that.
It's fairly low.
I believe
I
it's.
know what you're thinking, but our arbitrage on one is going to be higher than the other.
And this,
Even though we're not mixing funds.
this interest rate environment, brings this into a bigger question.
Correct,
But
because
yeah.
the arbitrage will be different in our favor over the bond rate, even though we're not mixing funds. When you looked at this scenario, and I'm just curious, and I'm sure you wouldn't have that answer, but we could be even getting a higher rate since the Fed's raised rates today, the possibility of Univest increasing their rate
Yes.
immediately, as some people do or some don't, depends on the bank, could be in our favor even more so. Our savings would even be greater than, our earnings would be greater than you're projecting tonight.
Correct.
For South Whitehall Township.
Yeah, because it went up, what, 3 basis points? Or was it?
75.
Okay.
75 basis points.
Okay. So a Univest would, what their final rate, they would.
Right.
That's how they handle it.
Correct.
And it'll be slightly below the Fed rate.
Right, of course. For the borrowing of the bank, but also, but our penalty won't change because that's fixed.
Correct.
Get out of the CD that we're in now, which is so. I'll leave it at that. You have to look at some of the stupidity of people, what they do. And this is certainly one of those. But, as Commissioner Walk said at the last meeting, we won't look back. Unbelievable.
Any other board comments on this? Any from the public? Yes, sir.
Robert Weiss, 2042 Whitehall Avenue. Commissioner Kennedy, this same thing happened to me. When the CD came due, it was rolled over at the prevailing rate, which was 0.4. When my CDs came due, they rolled over at the prevailing rate, which was 0.2. Right now, I can get a CD like
same problem.
Petrucci said, at
Same situation I
3.5.
have. I agree.
I
agree with you.
Nobody did anything wrong. That's just what happened. And I'm taking the penalty too, just like you're all going to do, because I'm going to make 15 times earnings from a 0.2 to a 3.
The different, you're right. The difference is I would probably look at my money market or my money a little differently and not lock up township funds at 0.40, knowing where the market's going. If they follow the markets till 2027,
of course.
When you can buy T-bonds, it's 3 months, 6 month year that are paying better than 10-year.
Yeah, right.
Today.
Absolutely.
Why would you lock your money up for 10 years and when you can get less, more interest?
I agree totally, but I don't, honestly, nobody has a crystal ball that they can go, look at the last how many years.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my thought. And like I said, myself and I'm sure a lot of other people are personally doing the same thing.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion to approve said resolution?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we will jump over to agenda item 9B. In conjunction with this, we have a motion to authorize the township manager, Director of Finance and Fund Balance Specialist to open a public funds elite liquid money market account with Univest Bank and Trust for the Fiscal Stability Fund. And Tom, do you have any further comment on this?
I do not, Commissioner Kelly.
Okay. Are there any board questions? Any from the public? We have a motion to proceed with said motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to Resolution B, we have a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township to commit a portion of the sewer fund balance towards future anticipated capital costs associated with the Kleins Island wastewater treatment plant that is owned and maintained by the Lehigh County Authority. And again, I'll ask Tom Petrucci to present.
Thank you. The resolution is requested to be approved to effectuate the previous request of the governing body to commit $2 million towards the future anticipated capital costs associated with Kleins Island wastewater treatment plant that is owned and maintained by the Lehigh County Authority. For background information, the Government and Standards Accounting Board, GASB, has issued statement number 54, establishing a hierarchy of fund balance classifications, guiding the use of resources reported in governmental funds. Consistent with GASB 54, the Board of Commissioners adopted a fund balance policy by way of resolution number 2022-68, which was adopted back in June. In accordance with GASB statement number 54 and the adopted fund balance policy, a committed fund balance classification includes amounts that can only be used for specific purposes determined by a formal action of the government's highest level of decision-making authority, which of course is the Board of Commissioners. So only the Board of Commissioners has the authority to commit a fund balance towards a specific purpose. So you have determined as the governing body that you want to commit $2 million of the fund balance of the sewer fund towards Kleins Island. And it's important to note, if you take this action to approve the resolution, that can only be changed and modified by a subsequent resolution of the governing body. So no township official or employee can unilaterally move those funds without approval first. So with that, I'd seek a motion to approve the resolution, and then we would proceed with, ensuring the funds are set aside appropriately.
Thank you very much for that explanation, Tom. Are there any comments or questions on this resolution? Any from the public? Oh, Commissioner Hodges? Yes.
I'm sorry. I do have a quick question, and I'm sorry if this is redundant, but is this going to be a yearly contribution or is this a single contribution? Because this resolution does state that the costs of the project are currently unknown. So will we need more in time? Will this be revisited in time?
So I can answer that twofold. You are only at this time committing $2 million. However, the recommendation of staff and management would be to continue to evaluate this based on how the Lehigh County Authority responds to you, which you don't know at this time. So the answer to both your questions is, to that part of your question, is that you need to continue to monitor it, that this isn't a done deal in terms of the money that may need to be committed.
So this will be a discussion at future budget workshops each year.
Or
as needed if it's more.
Or as needed, correct. Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have a motion to proceed with said resolution? I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item C, we have a resolution regarding PennDOT land acquisition for 4298 Windsor Drive. I will ask our Director of Township Operations, Herb Bender, to please explain.
Good evening. The piece of land that is located at 4298 Windsor Drive, identified as Lehigh County Parcel ID 5476-8564-7629-1, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation is seeking to acquire this from South Whitehall Township as part of their 309 interchange project. PennDOT has offered the township $104,500 for this parcel of land. Action requested is the administration is seeking approval from the Board of Commissioners so we can proceed with finalizing this transaction.
Thank you, Herb. Are there any board comments or questions? Any from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion to approve said resolution?
Make it.
I'll second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Herb. Moving on to Resolution D, we have a resolution extending conditional offer of employment to the entry-level position of patrol officer in the Township's Police Department to candidate number 81457, conditioned upon the individual satisfactorily completing medical and psychological examinations to confirm their fitness for duty. And I'll call on Chief Glenn Dorney to explain.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. This is just basically process in order to move forward with the hiring process for an entry-level patrol officer. We are at the number three applicant on the civil service list, which is 81457, and we are requesting permission to move forward with a conditional offer so we can start the background process for this applicant.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Are there any board comments or questions? Any from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to proceed with said resolution? I'll make that motion. Is there a second? The motion and a second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you,
Chief.
Commissioners.
Moving on to motions, we've already dealt with motion A and B. We will go down to motion C. I know we've done public acknowledgement of his service this evening, but we need to formally have a motion to formally accept the resignation of Commissioner Mike Wilk. And I will ask our Township Manager again to please present on this item.
Thank you. So basically, if you were inclined this evening, there would be two separate motions. So the first would be to accept the resignation of Commissioner Wilk, which you're not required to accept it tonight, and I'll explain that a little more in depth as we go along. But it's provided you do accept his resignation, a second motion would be requested for approval to advertise the notice for the interviews and applications, and to set the process in the schedule to fill the seat. Okay. But I think it's very important that I go through the background information of the first class township code so that you have all the relevant information to make an informed decision. So technically, under the first class township code, the date that the resignation does not occur until accepted by a majority vote of a quorum of the Board of Commissioners, which would be tonight, or the effective date of the tendered resignation, whichever is later. So that's in section 530A1 of the first class township code. In this case, Commissioner Wilk sent in his resignation on October 21st. However, his effective date was October 23rd. So the township code states that you have 45 days after it's been tendered in writing to the Board of Commissioners to accept the resignation. So however you interpret that, do you put it on the October 21st or October 23rd? Either way, you're talking, so if you say October 21st, then you run through, you have to accept it by December 5th, or it just becomes de facto accepted on that date, okay? But it's important to notice whatever the later date is, as to, if you accept it at a public meeting, we've already gone past the fact that his resignation was in writing before this meeting. So once you accept it, then you'd have 30 days to appoint a successor. If you don't appoint the successor within that 30-day window, then it goes to the vacancy board, which then has another 15 days to fill the vacancy. If you don't fill the vacancy, then it goes to the Lehigh County Court of Common Pleas, and you'd have to petition the court. So basically, I think the first question to the board is, do you want to accept his resignation tonight, or do you want to defer that to the next meeting? Because if you accept it tonight, then you must take action within 30 days, which would be December 2nd. And you'd have to schedule a special meeting in order to appoint his successor. But you're not required legally to accept it tonight if you feel you need more time. I just wanted to be very clear on that.
Thank you for explaining that. I'm in favor of accepting it this evening.
Likewise.
Discussion from. Agreed.
I agree too.
Okay, so someone would need to make a motion to that effect.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to formally accept the resignation of Commissioner Michael Wilk. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other board discussion? Any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we'll move down to the next motion, which is a motion to proceed with advertisement interview schedule to appoint Commissioner Wilk's successor. And Tom, could you guide us through this process?
Yes. So the proposed timeline would, if you had accepted the resignation tonight, was to set an application deadline for any individuals who want to be considered for appointment to the position by November 16th. So with that, we did prepare a public notice using the template from the last public notice, which then would be sent to me directly. And again, the proposed deadline would be November 16th, which is a Wednesday at 4 p.m. And then from there, you'd have to conduct interviews factoring in the Thanksgiving holiday. The recommendation would be on either the 21st or the 22nd. You would do that in a workshop setting. So you'd have to advertise for the workshop meeting, okay? And then if you do that, then you'd have to appoint via resolution at a special Board of Commissioners meeting, which would have to be completed, just throwing some dates out there, on November 30th or December 1st. So that would be a very narrow time frame, but that's what you would need to do to get it done.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any board comments or discussion on this proposed timeline?
One thing I didn't hear is we need to set the date, which would be after Thanksgiving, in order to make a decision. But we haven't set that date. Is that correct?
Correct. I recommended November 30th or December 1st as a special meeting.
What day of the week is November 30th?
I think it's,
Yeah,
Wednesday.
I'm fine with that.
yeah, and it's the week that doesn't have any other meetings.
Right. That sounds good to me.
I'm fine with November 30th for the special meeting.
Is
Other
there,
two commissioners?
is there a special time? Will it be an evening
Typically do
meeting?
6 p.m.
Okay, that's perfect.
Fine with it.
Perfect.
6 p.m. would work. Okay. And then for the interviews, the 21st is a Monday, the 22nd is a Tuesday.
Yes.
Any preference to the board for those?
We may need both.
I was going to say this.
We don't know.
No.
So I guess it might make sense to advertise both in case we need them. And 6 p.m., is everyone in agreement to a 6 p.m. start time?
Yes.
Okay. So I will make a motion to proceed with advertisement interview scheduled to appoint Commissioner Wilk's successor, with interviews being held on November 21st and 22nd at 6 p.m. and a special meeting to be called on Wednesday, November 30th at 6 p.m. to appoint the successor. So I have made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Any from the public? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item F, we have a motion to approve a 1-year extension of sewer main repairs contract with Utility Services Group. And I'll ask our Director of Township Operations, Herb Bender, to please assist with this.
I'll go back.
Did I miss one? I missed one.
That's
I am sorry. Got ahead of myself. Let me back up one. Back to agenda item E. Zip, motion to approve codification update, execution of proposal with general code to update the code of the Township of South Whitehall. And Tom, if you would assist with this.
Yes, so the township staff has obtained a proposal from general code to get our ordinances both online and the large sealed binder book up to date. So the current code that's online has the ordinance posted, but they're not codified into the final version of the ordinances. So the last the date that it's currently good through is December 18th, 2019. So all subsequent ordinances would then be incorporated into the code based on this proposal. The cost range is between $8,475 and $8,995. which is more than you typically would pay, but you have to factor in that this is for 2020, 21, and 2022 year to date. So the recommendation would be to conduct this service every year going forward, so that we don't fall behind. So with that, I'd seek a motion to approve the proposal. I believe it's supplement number 9, estimate line number 399515. That's not our line number. That's just the quote number, between the range of 8,475 and 8,995 with general code.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for bringing this to the board's attention. I appreciate you updating our ordinances to have them up to date. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Tracy and Tom Harper as well.
Please pass our appreciation to Tom, and thank you, Tracy. Any board discussion on this?
Just a comment that I see that we did budget $10,000 for the 2022 to have that done as a line item. So that's.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's actually below budget.
So, yeah, it's below budget. So thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Any questions from the public? Okay, I will make a motion to proceed with said motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll go to agenda item F. Motion to approve a 1-year extension of sewer main repairs contract with Utility Services Group. And our Director of Township Operations, Herb, if you would please assist.
Sure. This contract is used to do cast in place repairs for the sewer mains, also to repair sewer manholes that might have water infiltrating through the walls. This is also used for lining sewer main from manhole to manhole. This will be the last year of the 1-year extensions that we can take due to the increase in material costs and everything. I think it is in our best interest to extend this for the last 1-year extension that we can, and then go back out to bid next year.
Thank you, Herb.
And just so everyone's aware, they are willing to hold the pricing from the original contract also.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Osborne.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Kelly. Herb, I don't normally do this because it holds up a meeting on a specific question, but as we build up the level of our streets, I find myself on some roads avoiding the manholes because of the dip between the manhole and the surface of the road. What do you do about that?
There's multiple ways you can look at it. You can do what they call a frame and cover, which will raise the whole casting of the manhole up, or you can use riser rings that are out there now. You see a lot less of that going forward now because a lot more people are into milling 2 inches off and just putting 2 inches back. Before, all you did was go over the top of it. If you laid 1.5 inches, once you compacted, it was 1.25 inches. So you only put a 1-inch riser ring. So that's why you typically saw those bumps.
Is there a standard that South Whitehall uses?
Yeah, we like to see them all flush because when your manhole is in a little sunken, the water will infiltrate through the top of it, which that is considered I&I, and that's what we are trying to get out of the sewer system. That's why Klein's Island has these issues.
So these risers then, and I understand what you're saying physically, they're not sealed.
No, correct.
So water will get in between. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. But our standard is to have it flush with the road.
Correct.
And sealed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Any other comments? Commissioner Hodges?
I do have a question, and actually, it's not exactly about this, but this reminded me about what I'm going to ask. When we went to the site visit on Crackersport Road,
yes,
and we looked, the drains had sleeves to catch a lot of the debris.
Correct.
Is this something that the township uses throughout the township, or is it in certain areas where you have more debris? Or
no, it's used for when there's like a E&S plan in place for the construction that was taking place on that building. So if any runoff came off, that sediment does not make it to the creek. That's for an MS4 protection to keep the sediment from getting to the streams. The bag will actually catch it. After so long, you empty the bag and then you put a new one in, or just dump the old sediment out and reuse the same bag.
Okay, and you said it's in areas of construction to
Yes,
catch the debris.
yes,
Okay,
yep.
I'm sorry again, it's
No,
not
that's
exactly
okay.
about this. But,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
Any other comment? Any from the public? Sure. Please just make sure the microphone is turned on and give us your name and address. Perfect.
Oh,
Bright green.
oh, I thought it was on. 1351 Deerfield Drive. My only comment is that Springhouse Road between Trexler Boulevard and the Route 22 overpass is a nightmare as far as dips go. So I think it's it's a good idea to keep the manholes even. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the road I had in mind when I made
Yeah,
my comment. Yeah, and they're spaced such that, doing that. Hopefully we won't need you in a couple of weeks though, or 30 days.
He said Springhouse
Okay.
from Trexler to the overpass.
Stick around.
Oh, they're right in that.
Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, do we have a motion to proceed with said motion?
Motion.
I'll make a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to motion G, we have a motion to approve street moratorium exemption request by applicant Aqua Pennsylvania Incorporated, 831 Americus Avenue to Country Club Drive intersection. And Herb Bender, if you would assist.
Yes, Aqua has come in to do a pretty big job on the south side of the township on Americus Drive and some other roads that are in Salisbury also. The reason they need this is this road is under a 5-year moratorium. This road was paved in 2019. Aqua has agreed to mill this street from curb to curb when they are completely finished. So to lift it, we will be getting a brand new road back again. So it's not like we're going to get a patch here or a trench. They are agreeing to do the full trench restoration of the 5 inches of BCBC and then mill everything off and put 1.5 inches of topping on the top again. So I would be in favor of this to go through.
Thank you, Herb. When is this work scheduled to be started?
Probably in the spring.
Okay.
We're working on right now of what their escrow has to be posted first. We're working with them on all of that.
Very good. Thank you.
You actually answered my question. What recourse do we have back to Aqua?
Escrow.
The escrow, you answered that, so.
Yeah, I'm figuring out how much material they would need so we make the escrow high enough that we have enough to cover the material in case they wouldn't do it.
And manpower.
Yep.
Commissioner Hodges, sir.
I do have a question as well. How will our residents be informed that this is happening? Is Aqua going to take the lead to inform them? Or are we going to do it as well just to make sure that our
No,
residents
Aqua will put door hangers out and they will also notify. They are going to lay the new water main first, get it in, get it filled, do the testing, and then they will reconnect the houses after the main has been tested. So they'll be out of water for maybe an hour at the longest, and everyone will be, one house at a time will be taken out of service for no longer than an hour.
Okay, I just want to make sure everyone who's there knows.
Nothing happened. Yes, and we will have an inspector there also, so we will be able to make sure residents are notified in that. Mhm.
So moved.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item H, we have a motion to approve budget transfers within the 2022 fire budget. And Herb Bender, if you'd please assist.
Yes, the fire fund is in need of some budget transfers in order to cover costs for the remainder of the 2022 year. There are a few line items that are already over budget, as well as some that we project to go over budget if transfers do not occur. As they're all labeled out under the actions requested, what we did do is we did meet with the fire departments to get their projections till the end of the year. So we are hoping this is the last time we come back this year for any budget transfers. If they would need some, it might just be very minor. They do have plenty of money for these transfers, though.
Very good, thank you. Any board comment or question? Any from the public? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve said motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to correspondence and information. I'm going to ask our township manager to please review upcoming meetings.
The upcoming meetings are as follows. The details are posted on the website. Monday, November 7th, Public Safety Commission, 7 p.m. Tuesday, November 8th, there's a Planning Commission Comprehensive Plan Workshop at 7 p.m. Wednesday, November 9th at 10 a.m., there's a Civil Service Commission. And also on that same day, there's a Board of Commissioners Workshop at November 9th at 6 p.m. And Monday, November 14th, there's a Park and Rec Board at 7 p.m. However, please check back on that one. It may be canceled.
Thank you, Tom. Any board comment or question? Any from the public? Moving on to old business. I'll ask Herb if you could please give us an update on Weir's Dam.
Yes, I'm not sure if anyone has been down the Wares Dam. There's a lot going on down there. The construction entrance is in place. The protective construction fence is up. The divers were in the water today, setting for the Porta Dam to be installed. They are hoping to get that up by the end of this week, have it in to start rerouting the water to basically have the concrete contractor start assessing and getting into the creek next week, hopefully, they're hoping for. So everything is going to plan. We haven't run into any snags, knock on wood, yet. So we're moving along, and it's good to see we finally got this in motion.
I agree. Thank you, Herb, for that update. I did go by there today and I saw one of the divers in the water. They've got a lot of work going on. So I just had one question. I know that they've got a construction entrance there. Is it still able for our residents to access the Jordan Creek Greenway?
Yes, we actually had part of the wooden barrier taken out, and you'll see the orange fence there. There is an entrance right there to the trail just past where they're working.
Oh, very good. Excellent. Yes. Thank you. Any other board comment or question? Any from the public? Thank you. And old business agenda item B, I'm going to call on our Director of Community Development, Dave Manhart, to give us an update on our comprehensive plan.
So yes, as mentioned earlier, we have the comprehensive plan workshop scheduled for Tuesday. The last meeting we introduced land use. There were a lot of questions, and we wanted to, as I mentioned at the last meeting, wanted to be very deliberate and make sure everybody's on board. So we scheduled individual meetings with Planning Commission members and BOC members. We are about 80% through. We've gotten in touch with almost everybody. We feel this is a very important piece of the comprehensive plan, so we want to make sure everybody understands and has a full understanding of that before we move it forward. So we did take a little bit of a pause on this piece to make sure everybody's up to speed. So at this Tuesday meeting, we're hoping to review all the comments that we had from these land use discussions, see if there's any remaining questions, get those answered, with the intent of plugging that land use section into the draft. A draft has also been provided to, or a link to the draft has been provided to all the board members. We'll review that, have an opportunity to review that. And we will also go over the implementation plan. So we sent out a survey asking for priority and timeline. So we'll go over the results of that, and hopefully we'll have time to go over the individual items, and we can kind of fill in holes that need to be filled in. So everybody has a good understanding of that. Once we get those two items wrapped up, it'll get incorporated into the draft and we should be ready to go. So we're getting very close. And we'll also talk about timeline. So there's some questions that we'll have for the board at that meeting as far as when to open it for public comment.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the pause that you built in here and allowed staff to have individual, I know I took advantage of it, an opportunity to go over the map with staff, and it was very, very helpful to kind of bring it all together. So I appreciate everything you and the staff has done to help. Are there any board comments or questions? Any from the public? Oh, sure.
Okay. The last comprehensive plan that we did back in 2005, 7, 9. Okay. I was on the Atlanta board at the time, and we were working on our 10-year transportation plan, and we were 6 months behind the township on our plan. And I remember Renee Rodriguez was asking me, well, where is Atlanta going? I said, well, we haven't, Abrams and Shinoy haven't finished our plan yet. Now, the question is, have you been working with Atlanta on the public transportation side of that?
So one of the things we did with this comprehensive plan is we built in a lot of flexibility and kept it divided tasks out into implementation. So one of the implementation items is a multimodal plan.
Okay.
So we'll look at pedestrian, bicycle, and transit as part of that plan. And that is where we'll dig into the weeds and we'll sit down with Lanta and figure out their plans for the future, our plans for the future, where, if service is going to be extended, where it might make sense and how we can incorporate their comments.
Yeah, the one thing that they're doing, they have that mini hub up at the Whitehall Mall. And there was talk when I was on the board to have a mini hub by Cedar Crest Boulevard, because you think if anybody wants to go from, let's say, Cedar Crest Plaza to Lehigh Valley Hospital, they have to ride in on one of the 107 or the 213 bus into the Allentown Transportation Center to come back out. And one of the things would be long-term would be Atlanta, would they be running service up and down Cedar Crest Boulevard? And, there'd be mini hubs there where the bus from Snexville would come into Cedar Crest and then people would transfer to go down. So anyway, that's the type of concept that is going on. And the other thing that's going on in Charleston or Savannah, what they're doing is they have mini buses that will go out, say they go to Springhouse Farms and Parkland Farms and bring them to Cedar Crest Plaza bus terminal, and they take the large bus to wherever it's going. And I know Charleston or Savannah has pioneered that. I believe it's Charleston, where the buses go out, and it's a call-in system. And the buses go out to the neighborhoods and then come in and connect with the large buses to go somewhere. So anyway, that's the kind of concept.
I will be searching you out when we start the multimodal plan for your involvement.
Yeah, okay. I was involved, on the Atlanta board back the last one.
Yes, thank you.
Anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Moving on to direction and discussion. We have the 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting schedule, and I'm going to ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to please present.
Thank you. So I'm asking for direction from the board to discuss a potential meeting schedule change for the board meetings to be held in 2023. The First Class Township Code states the following regarding monthly meetings. You're required to meet once a month at a time and place designated by ordinance. Now, our ordinance currently says you meet on the first and third Wednesdays of each month. And then you also have a workshop meeting on the second Wednesday. So I wanted to just discuss the possibility of eliminating the monthly workshop meeting of the board. And then you would still have your regular meetings on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. And you could organize the third Wednesday as a workshop from time to time as per the needs of the township. However, because it would be advertised as a regular meeting, you could still conduct business at the meeting to ensure that the approval of bills is still handled in a timely manner. And if any time pressing land development matters come before the board. So where you would want to discuss workshop topics, you could handle those items, and then you could conduct those discussion topics at the end of the meeting. But it's completely up to the board. I just wanted to get your feedback on it.
Thank you for bringing this for our consideration. I'll open up to board comment.
Thank you. Tom, do it.
I was going to thank you for bringing this to our consideration. I know several times this year we've had a workshop, so it was 3 Wednesdays in a row, and it was certainly a lot for us as commissioners and for staff to prepare and do the work that's required behind the scenes during the meeting and then the follow-up. And I definitely think this is a good option for us to try out moving forward. And I believe we would always have the option to call a special meeting for an additional workshop if something large were to come up.
You always have that option.
So it seems to make sense to me, and I thank you for bringing it for our consideration.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback.
I'd also like to say that I'm all for streamlining everything. At first, I got a little concerned because I thought, oh no, does this mean that the budget workshop would be after a regular meeting? And just knowing that we could hold that and we have the flexibility, that helps. So
Yeah,
thank
to
you.
clarify, you'd still schedule a separate budget workshop meeting,
Okay,
which would have to be advertised.
I just want to make a comment. If I was a resident listening to Tom just speak, he's a new guy and this is what he wants to do. Well, I'd like to point out that it was not Tom's idea to do this. I'm the one that brought it to Herb Bender. And not that I want to take credit, but I just want people to realize that I also addressed it with Tom when he came on board. I don't want people to think that, Tom's saying, oh, I'm going to cut meetings and we're looking to raise stipends and all that. It's not the case at all. What happened, I think, as Commissioner Kelly said, it becomes difficult. We have 2 meetings. We have the workshop meeting. We have the comp plan meeting. We have special meetings. And over the course of, my 10 months on the board, I'm just speaking for myself, it sometimes becomes difficult to make the meetings. When you run for an elected office, you want to make the meetings that you're here for. That's why you're in office. There are times when we all can't make certain meetings for whatever reason. We all have those. And it just became apparent to me that, when we have comp plan meetings, we struggle to get 3 of us sometimes, which then the meeting can't be held. It becomes more of a planning meeting. So our staff, Dave, Greg Adams, et cetera, are saying, well, we don't have an official comp plan meeting because we didn't have 3 board members present, which has to have as a quorum. It just became cumbersome, and it's frustrating when, I look at staff and they're preparing for a meeting, and all of a sudden the board doesn't show up. So it was a way to say, maybe if we streamlined our meetings a little bit and it helps staff, and we'll be better prepared. And not that we're not prepared, but I think all in all it'll be a win. So as Brad said, let's try to do it. And it's like anything, Tom, when you said to me, if we try it and for somehow it doesn't work out, we go back to what it was. There's no harm, no foul. Thank you.
Any other comments? Any from the public? Okay, think you have your direction, Tom?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Moving on to direction and discussion item B, we have single axle Freightliner. I can't. Let's try it a third time. Single axle Freightliner truck final cost. And Herb Bender, please help me out.
Yes. We know we incurred some increases to the Freightliner truck and chassis throughout the process of the build. I brought those to the board and said when the truck did arrive, I would come back if there was any more increases from the upfitter. So the truck has arrived. It was brought here. We did see it. It is ready to go to the upfitter now. I have reached out to the upfitter. There has been an increase. Some of these truck bodies have gone up 30 to 40%. It's too much. I talked to them, expressed my concerns with those prices. Since we have done business with them in the past, multiple single axle and our triaxles all have their bodies on. They have agreed to only increase our cost $800. So with that said, that would bring our upfit total to $73,209, and the complete truck would come out to be $199,087.70. It was budgeted for at $192,500 in state highway aid. This truck is $6,587.70 higher due to the rising costs. I did talk with Trish and Christian Blahnik. We can still afford to do this. There is reserve there that we would have to use for this.
Excellent. Thank you, Herb. And thank you for contacting the supplier to work with them to see if they could help us out on the cost. So I appreciate you doing that extra work. Any other comments from the board? Any
Great job, Herb. Thank you.
Any public comment? Okay, at this point, do you need anything from us? We don't need a vote, do we?
No,
It's just a
if
discussion.
the board's okay, then we'll just get the truck down to the upfitter.
Okay, excellent. Moving on to agenda item 13, courtesy of the floor. Is there anyone here from the public who'd like to address the board for any non-agenda items? Sure.
One more thing on the comprehensive plan in Atlanta.
Dave, can you just give your name one more time for the record?
Pardon?
Give your name and address.
Dave Torrey, 1351 Deerfield Drive.
Thank you.
One more thing on the comprehensive plan in Atlanta. When we're reviewing our plan, bus shelters, like Maryland has a requirement depending on the number of boardings and discharges at a certain place. I know that the one on Winchester near Weiss is very significant. So as we look at this comprehensive plan, I don't know if that have to change land use ordinances, all that, or whatever. But and there's some very good bus shelters out there. They're not the old school bus thing. I mean, they're very modern. But we need to think about that, and maybe that goes into a planning ordinance or a zoning ordinance or whatever. So keep that in mind.
Just to follow up, we've had active conversations with Atlanta regarding shelters, particularly along Walbert and the Crest Plaza.
Yeah.
They've been trying to improve the shelter or add a shelter on Winchester. We went through a project to get that installed a couple years ago, but there were a lot of utility issues that kind of prohibited that, just made the cost a lot higher. So we send all of our land development plans to Atlanta. We get comments back oftentimes. So Atlanta, we have a very good working relationship with Atlanta, and we will continue it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else who'd like to address the board? Hearing and seeing none, I'll move on. I need a motion to authorize payment of invoices and disbursements. I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no executive session this evening. I need a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This motion is adjourned. Thank you all.